For better or worse, it is a money world. It's also a world where I'm just having to reposition the tape dispenser on the microphone button here. It seems to be working, so I can have my finger free. Don't know what I really need that finger for, but I still don't really want to hold it down for the next 20 minutes while I talk to Robert Stern, who is an author. He's also a former CFO for television and film, and has a bunch of different anecdotes and stuff to talk about. So without further ado, Robert Stern, how are you?
I'm fine, Dave, and how are you?
I'm good. Where are you calling from?
I'm in New York City as we speak.
Oh, what are you doing in town?
I came in for Book Expo America.
Ooh, now what book are you pushing?
I'm pushing For Certain I'm Hurtin'.
For Certain I'm Hurtin'. And that's a relationship kind of...
It is. I learned through my experiences, I learned what the number one cause of divorce was.
Please don't tell me it's marriage.
Marriage, you got it.
Okay, yeah.
So, and that's my book, and that's the story, and that's the journey of... and I take myself through my journey through that process and discovering what men and women are really about.
How many times have you been married and divorced?
I've been married and I've been married 3 times, divorced twice. My second wife passed away.
Okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay. That was part of the journey. That's over 20-some years ago.
But what did you learn from the 2 divorces?
Well, what I really learned was that men are about sex and attention, and that women are about being provided for and protected.
This you did not know going in.
Apparently I didn't.
Okay.
And that the woman sets the tone of all relationships, and how she sets that tone with her power determines how the relationship will evolve.
Huh. Okay, that sounds pretty cool. And this is what how do you tell this in your book? How do you spin that out to 150-odd pages?
Well, I take my journey from many of my mistakes through life, and the pain that's why it's called For Certain I'm Hurtin'. I've had a lot of, things to deal with and a lot of growth. So as I went through my business career in the entertainment business, I traveled all the way through with relationships, trying to do relationships and business at the same time, and so I tell that story.
Oh, okay. That's cool. Forgive me if I'm misremembering, especially since it could be rather embarrassing if I'm misremembering, but when we first talked a few weeks ago at the radio TV interview conference, the what do they call that? The
National Publicity Summit.
Thank you. Yes, National Publicity Summit in Manhattan. There was also a thing where you were pretty much chasing sex everywhere. Am I remembering that right?
Well, that's true. Yes, that's quite true. I said to you, it's no secret that sex makes the world go around. But what is a secret is that thousands of decent American men are traveling around the world for sex and attention. That's what I got your attention with.
Yeah, that did. That did get my attention. So, do you consider that one of your mistakes?
No, actually, in that particular phase of my life, I was in transition. I was going through my third marriage had ended, and I was pretty distraught about that. And everybody who goes through a relationship breakup knows you go through a certain transition. Mm-hmm. And I was in that transition, and I had kind of figured, I don't think I can do this anymore. So I decided, because I'm an older guy, I decided that maybe I should do something different. And so I began to travel around the world looking for what was next.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, that makes total sense. But what was next? Any 22-year-old with a cute smile?
Actually, there were a lot of 22-year-olds with cute smiles.
Works for me, yeah.
In Costa Rica, in the Dominican Republic, those were primarily the places I went.
Well, wait a minute. Were you paying for these things, or were these...
Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Did you have a moral problem with any of that, or not? Or
no, I didn't have a moral problem with it.
Okay, cool. That's good for you, I guess.
Well, in many respects, in many other parts of the world they're disadvantaged, and these are not underage girls. So I'm not doing. Okay. I did not do anything that was illegal. In Costa Rica, it's legal. In the Dominican Republic, it's legal. In Costa Rica, pimping is illegal. Okay, but prostitution is not.
Temping is illegal?
Pimping is
People
illegal
have to work
in Costa
full-time?
Rica.
Or did you say pimping?
Pimping.
Sorry, I missed the...
That's okay.
Oh, that joke didn't work at all. Okay, yeah.
So I mean, and a lot of it's unfortunate. It's not like the United States, but it's unfortunate for a lot of the women and girls, their only source of income is to do this.
Right.
So I mean, it's the oldest profession in the world.
No. I mean, that's totally cool. Do you still indulge? I mean, you're still, or do you have a full-time girlfriend
I'm in another relationship now.
Oh, good for you.
And well, let me make it clear that in all of my relationships, I was exclusive. I never cheated on anybody.
Oh.
So I'm a very honorable guy. I'm happen to be in another relationship now.
But I assume that when you say you made mistakes, and that was what were the mistakes then? That you made that were marriage wreckers.
Well, I think it's choosing the wrong people. While I had my own flaws, choosing the wrong people was probably my mistake, and not really understanding the relationship equation about really accepting my own needs for sex and attention. And men are quite a bit about attention.
Oh yeah.
And women define their needs for providing and protecting quite differently. And so it's really understanding what it is that they really need, and are you able to give them, and will they be satisfied? For women to be satisfied, they must be able to celebrate their man. He must be their hero. And unfortunately, I don't believe I chose women who really saw me in that light. And so, but not that I couldn't be a hero to someone else, a lot of people make the mistake of choosing the wrong person. And that was probably... Well, let me put it this way. My second wife, the one who passed away, I was her hero, and the truth is she was my hero too. So it's not like I didn't find it. After that marriage, I thought everything would be okay, but it wasn't, because what I realized, if a woman gets it and celebrates her man, the man doesn't have to get too much. He just has to, he'll worship the ground she walks on. And my mistake was I thought that would all... Once I found it, I thought I could just go on and find it again and find it again. And I didn't really understand that I had to find a woman who got it, who really understood the relationship equation.
Okay. Well, do you feel, it's kind of putting you on the spot, but do you feel that girl number 4 got it? Yeah,
I'll tell you why she got it. When we were going out on the very first date, I started talking about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I live in Las Vegas. And I had been in Southern California for over 30 years, and she was from the Southern California and area as well. And we had met in Las Vegas. And one of the classes that I took while I was in Los Angeles was a class called Understanding Women from this great expert, Allison Armstrong, who has a website, understandmen.com, and they have a class that they teach women, which is called Celebrating Men, Satisfying Women. Everything I've learned about this has really come from brilliant women experts.
Actually, isn't it just lick the alphabet? Didn't Sam Kinison do it in like 5 minutes? No,
I don't know.
Just kidding.
I know.
Well, let's move on. Let's move on to some of the stuff that I also want to talk about regarding your career.
Yes.
As I guess a money man would not really be the correct term. You're not a producer. You were the guy in accounting, as it were.
That was one of my duties. That's basically correct. That was the most charge of my responsibilities. That's right.
So you were doing the books for... How did you get to do the books for Fox Television and become their chief financial officer?
Well, I started with Fox. First I started with Fox in the features division. I came in and I had to learn the film business. I was the head of what was called the participation department. And what that means, the word participation means that the writers, actors, directors, producers have an opportunity to participate in the film, which means to get additional compensation on how well the film does.
Okay.
And I learned the business on my very first film, Star Wars. Star Wars was my first film. I had the great opportunity of going to the very first screening at the studio. And
wait, stop there.
All right.
Stop there. We're talking to Robert Stern, who,
right.
Well, as he's telling us, he was the CFO of Fox Television, and your first movie was Star Wars, and you're saying that you were at the first screening of the fully cut film with music and everything, right?
As presented to us and introduced to us by George Lucas.
What was it like that when he did you realize that he had something that would be a monster?
No, none of us realized it. In fact, all the studios passed on Star Wars time and time again until Alan Ladd Jr., who was the head of Fox Features at that time, decided to make it. When we saw it, I liked it, but nobody had the idea nor was ready for the amount of success that this film brought to the studio. The studio, back during that era, the studios were having great difficulties, and Star Wars actually saved 20th Century Fox at that particular time.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So you came out of that screening room, you saw it. What was George Lucas like when he was introducing the movie? Was he humble? Was he incredibly proud because he'd come up with it? Was he worried?
I always found George Lucas to be a very soft-spoken guy, but he presented it. He believed in his product, and he just wanted us to enjoy his film. So I found him very gracious.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. So one of the things in your bio says that you wrote like a $42 million check. What was that for? In other words, you were greenlighting before the movie got made.
No. The $42 million check after the film was released. It went. It's out in the theaters, and the money is coming into Fox and coming into Fox. Fox has an obligation under the contract with George Lucas to pay him his participation, his back end deal, and so I was new to the participation department. So for 3 months. For 3 months, my brain worked harder at that time than it has in my entire life. I had to know where every dollar came from, where it went, how it was spent, how it was used, and then my department calculated under the contract that George Lucas had with the studio what his net profits definition had. In other words, it's like doing a tax return, and you come down to the bottom line, and under the rules and the regulations, and you come down to what he's owed, and that first check was for $42 million.
Oh, my God. This is going back to an era. Now, if a movie doesn't make $100 million in its run, we consider it almost a flop. Back then, I didn't think that Star Wars made that much money even in the first 3 months, even though it was huge.
Oh, it did. Star Wars cost in the teens about $16 million, $17 million, somewhere in that range to make it, and another $16 or $17 million to market. That was the initial surge. But talking about the $100 million mark, after the success of Star Wars, I also, one of my jobs was to evaluate projects.
Oh.
And a project was given to me called Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I was supposed to look at this and determine whether we should go forward or make my recommendation whether we should go forward with it or not. So after the evaluation, I concluded that in order for Raiders of the Lost Ark to break even, we had to take in $100 million. And that was my recommendation. I said, if you think we can bring in $100 million with it, do it. I said, we don't have too many films to bring in $100 million. I wouldn't take the risk. Wow. So I recommended no, but in the rest is history. It went on to Paramount and did, what happened.
Yeah. Oh, well, see, there you go. You get, were there any films that you green-lighted that you, you weren't really the one to green-light. But were there any films that you went, this is worth the risk, and it turned out to be something that was either really big or something even better, a film that you're really proud got made? Because it made a little money, but it was a great film. Well,
the films that I was associated with that had their successes was Mel Brooks' History of the World Part 1, Young Frankenstein.
Wait, you were there during Young Frankenstein?
Well,
that must have been huge.
Well, I was there during paying out the participations because they continue. I was there when Omen. I actually went to London and was on the Omen set. Julia was made during that period of time
with Jane Fonda and was it Robards?
No, I'm trying to remember. There's another actress that was in it.
Oh, okay.
There's another actress.
Yeah, okay.
In Julia.
But that was the one about Hellman, right? Lillian Hellman?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Cool. Wow.
So I went through. That was a lot of films, and then after I was in the feature film division, I moved over because prior to that I had been in radio and television stations in the Los Angeles area, and then my career moved over after 2 years in the features. I went over to the television division. And
there you were in Fox, right? And you were dealing with a little show called MASH.
Yeah, MASH. I was in the television division as the financial guy for television during the final years of MASH. And as an aside from that, when I used to be in the features division, the stage for MASH was was next to my building, and Alan Alda would always come into my building, and we would talk a little bit from time to time, and then 2 years later, I'm in television as he's doing MASH. And one day I'm in my office as the financial guy, and during when when we would do pilots for the television network, they would always come in to audit our costs and stuff, so I became friends with the head of the NBC audit department. And one day I get a call from him, and he tells me that they're going to be doing on the Emmy broadcast. Each year they do what are called the reading of the rules. Way back when they used to have, they have Price Waterhouse. And they were going to do a group of accountants, and they were going to have accountants come and do a song and dance act for the Emmys. So I went down to audition for it. He encouraged me to go audition for it.
Yeah.
And so when I went down there were like 300 accountants, financial types from the industry, auditioning to do a song and dance act live on the Emmys. and we would go and they would take us to the piano to see if we could sing, and then after they listened, they'd take us up 3 at a time, and then they would go in the back room after they heard us, and they'd whisper and make notes and do all that. And then they sent us over to do a dance act. Now
it was like a counting idol,
So we had it's almost like that. And Michael Peters, who was a choreographer of Michael Jackson's Thriller album, was the guy who was working with us in the dance area. And so he would then go 5, 6, 7, 8. And then we had to follow his steps. And then they'd go back and whisper. Well, I ended up getting selected to be on it. There were 30 of us who got selected, and I was on stage, in the Pasadena auditorium, and looking straight at me at the time while I was doing my live broadcast was Alan Alda. And just smiling at me.
So actually, I'll bet that didn't inhibit you. I'll bet that relaxed you a little bit, if it was possible to be relaxed at that moment.
Yes, but it was a lot of fun.
Well, that's so. Let me ask you something. Here, granted, people's dream jobs in Hollywood would be acting and directing. But if you're not going to do that, if your talent lies in a different way, you have these really cool jobs. You were like the head financial guy, vetting the costs, writing the checks, seeing that the checks were going in the right place for all these huge projects in movies and TV. Honest question, why aren't you still doing that? Are you comfortably retired, or is it the way of the business that people just get canned, after a few years of service?
It's a young person's business, and you go through, Hollywood is filled with power and regimes, and so it is natural to go through those cycles. I had a wonderful career, a wonderful ride. I'm financially very sound, and so later after I told you about my wife who passed away, I happened to be at that time at a company called New World. And I was at New World, and that's during the Wonder Years era. And after I left that company got bought out, and I got bought out. I wanted to raise my son and do something different, and I wanted to be close because his mom wasn't there. So I started my own business. But after that business stopped, and he was getting ready to go off to college, I decided to go back into the business. And I was fortunate enough to become a general manager of a talent agency, a literary talent agency in Beverly Hills.
Oh, which one?
It was Broder, Webb, Chervin, and Silverman, which was actually bought out by ICM.
Everything's bought out by everything. And when they bought out Broder, Silverman, were you out the door then, or?
Yeah, I was out a little bit before that. It was coming, and it was my time to go, and then I went on to do some other things, and then I eventually left Los Angeles and moved to Las Vegas.
And how do you like it in Vegas?
I absolutely love Vegas. I'm a professional bingo player now.
Wait, what?
No, that's humor.
Oh, sorry, okay. No, because my guest co-host, who's usually on this program, Jeff Goodman, he's a Vegas nut. It's not like he's a big wild gambler, he just enjoys the whole scene of it. And he's very, very seriously considering moving there in a year or two.
It's a great time to buy because everything, as you know, across country is depressed, and it's a great time to buy.
Oh, cool. So, last question for Robert Stern, former CFO, possibly a CFO again, and also author. Curious, this is the thing that I don't get. Your job, for the most part, your various jobs, had to do with making sure that the books were the books. When you went to the IRS, and you handed them what the profits were, what the losses were, what the grosses that came in were, and how they were distributed, everything kind of checked out. So how is it that Hollywood hides money? How does a $200 million film never make a profit so that they don't have to pay the actors who have percentage points of the film anything. How do they do that?
Well, it's called there's a lot of misnomers about that, and I can tell you about Alien because Alien had a lot of publicity related to that. You have to understand that each of the participants in the film have individual contracts that define how everything's going to be calculated. And these individuals are represented by very high-powered attorneys who understand the definitions by which these calculations are going to be done.
Okay.
So it's not that they're really hiding anything. It's a misnomer. That doesn't mean that in the early days when there was a gray area, I mean, some things were black and some things were white, so it was very clear for the interpretation. But where the contract was gray, the studio naturally, interpreted it in its favor, and then sometimes the participant would disagree. And it's true that many, 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 many years ago, not during my era, but many years before that, the studios did play dirty tricks. And but that was gone by the time I got into the business.
Well, I will take you for your word because you seem like you're certainly honest about your life in a whole bunch of ways. So I'll certainly take your word for that. And give us the word on how people can purchase Certain I'm Hurtin'.
Well, for CertainI'mHurtin.com, ForCertainI'mHurtin. For CertainI'mHurtin.com.
Well, I am. There's no apostrophe.
There's no apostrophe.
For Certain I'm Hurtin'.
There's no G on the end of Hurtin'.
So. Well, I'm hoping you're not hurting anymore. It doesn't sound like you are. You got a nice girlfriend. You got the place in Vegas. You're comfortably set. And your son's doing well?
Everybody's doing well.
Thank God. Good news. Good things to hear. And really good talking to you. Wonderful conversation. Great hearing about all the different aspects of your life. And I want to thank so much Robert Stern for visiting the Daverhood.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
Have a great night.
All right, bye-bye.